Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Chris Eliopoulos. He is returning to celebrate the Giggles Are Coming, a great new picture book. Hey, Chris, welcome back to the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
I appreciate you having me on.
I can't wait to learn about the Giggles Are Coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a follow-up book to my first book, The Yawns Are Coming, which is basically the story of two kids who decide that they want to have a sleepover and stay up all night, and they make a big list of things to do, but they are attacked by the physical representation of yawns and sleepies and dozes and stuff like that, and they don't manage to stay up. They fall asleep, and then the next day starts, and they make a new list. And then so this one, it follows them to their first day at school, and I'm sure we all have that feeling of you're supposed to be serious in a serious occasion, especially the first day of school, and that's when the giggles kick in, and you're supposed to not giggle in class, and our heroes are once again attacked by the physical representation of giggles and guffaws and chuckles and stuff like that. So eventually their teacher joins in, and they all get a good laugh by the end. So.
I love that idea, and it's true. But yawns and giggles just kind of attack us from out of nowhere. It's as if they are like this being that comes and just takes over your body.
Yeah, and they're contagious, right? I mean, you see somebody yawn, and then you yawn, or if somebody starts giggling, you can't help but smile and start laughing yourself. So it seems to be like a fun thing to do. Like, if for some reason, when I first thought of yawns, it was this, like, I was getting my hair cut, I was yawning, I was tired, I was just fading out, and I kept yawning. I said, oh, man, the yawns are coming. And for some reason, I pictured these creatures coming and ripping my mouth open forcing me to yawn. And that was like the impetus to get that story going. And it pretty much rolled out just like that. But then I was trying to think of other things that are contagious in that sense. And for some reason, the word giggles just popped in my head. And that was the next thing. So it was just... Those are the things, right? The things that keep us going. Somebody yawns, you yawn, you giggle, they giggle. Mm-hmm. So it's just something fun to make physical, which is something that you can't really explain otherwise.
Yeah, and giggle is such a fun word to begin with.
Yeah, I had to make a list. I made a list of all the words for like sort of laughter or phrases, like a guffaw. It just sounds like a big giant creature who's like slapping you on the back. So that's sort of where all that was the fun part, is trying to kind of figure out which characters are what and what they look like based on their name. And it reminded me of this old Mad Magazine bit. I forget the name of it. Paul Coker Jr. was the artist, and it was sort of like they would say, like, they'd come up with phrases like a loose tongue or something like that, and then it's just sort of like this big creature that looks like a big tongue that's loose or whatever. But and so I just sort of like, okay, that's a fun idea, is to make physical something that is like just a saying. So a guffaw becomes a big monster.
You mentioned Mad Magazine, and that is certainly something that was part of my reading list growing up. I had to get every edition. Was Mad a big influence for you?
It was it's weird. It wasn't my primary one. Like it's weird. It was like certain artists I fell in love with. It was Mort Drucker, who did wonderful caricatures. It was Don Martin, who did this crazy style with all these wacky sound effects, and Paul Coker Jr. he sort of was my favorite because he carried over everywhere. Like, those Christmas specials that you would see, Frosty and all those similar ones were all like designed by him. Mm-hmm. And so like for me, like he was the guy. So I tended to like the artist that sometimes when I was young, the humor just went way over my head. I just wasn't quite grasping what was funny about it, but the art was amazing. Mm-hmm. Like you would see, like I'm old enough that like I saw like there was a Mort Drucker. It was a West Side Story parody, but it was Kennedy and Khrushchev as the Jets and the whatever the other gang was, and they're running around the United Nations, and I had no clue what was going on. I didn't understand, the politics or anything like that, but it looked amazing, so that's all that mattered. But Mad Magazine was basically my learning to see different artists and their strengths and weaknesses, and copying them like crazy.
Yeah. That's interesting because, I certainly had favorite writers growing up, but I don't know if I had a favorite artist or a cartoonist. Mm-hmm. Is that just, do you think that you focused in on these artists just because art was so important to you?
Yeah, I think so. I always think, it's weird. Even though I write visually. I think, like in pictures, mm-hmm. I tend to think, when I'm think of a story, like it almost comes together. Like, I mean, that's why I feel like I work better with words and pictures because that's the way I think. So I was always drawn to like my original and biggest influence is Peanuts. And that was, when I was like 5 years old, I was barely like just able to read. And I'm reading Peanut strips and these little Fawcett books. And to me, everything was words and pictures. And the pictures were the things that drew me in. So like, I would gravitate towards comic strips based on the art. Mm-hmm. And then I would sort of follow suit with the writing. And the same thing with Mad Magazine and all the other influence, comic books. My entry in was looking at the art, and then, the secondary portion was the writing. But yeah, so like everything was always the art. I was always art first and then writing second. So
interesting. That really is interesting, and it's fun talking about because it's a great reminder to us all that we all look at the world differently. Yeah. I mean, it's weird because I just always assumed that people thought and saw things the same way I do, and as I went along, I realized that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I tend to think very visually, and I think when I'm writing a story, whether a graphic novel or a picture book, as I'm writing it, I'm already picturing the image in my head. So, like, if I'm doing a graphic novel, I'm already, like, each panel, I'm picturing what's happening. And when I'm writing for other people, it's so hard for me because I already see the whole thing in my head. And then when it comes back, it's like, well, that wasn't exactly. I guess I should have written what I was seeing better. Mm-hmm. I mean, usually the art is much better than I could have ever imagined, but it's just sort of, like, different from what I was picturing in my head. But that's what happens. Like, everything is an image as well as the text. So what's funny is, like, even when I'm writing a graphic novel, I write in I literally take a spiral notebook, and I just take a flare pen, and I box it out, and I do each panel, and I will write in the dialogue without any real visuals. Sometimes I'll put in a little, like, stick figure just to sort of give me a reminder of what I was thinking. But for the most part, when I go back like a month later to maybe draw it out or to rewrite or something, I see that image right away. Like whatever it is that I did, whatever I was thinking at the time pops right back in without even realizing it. So for some reason, I learn better visually, and I think better visually. So I didn't realize that so many people don't. Mm-hmm. So it was a wake up call when I was like, well, it's right there. Can't you see it? And like I get in arguments with my wife all the time about like she'll be like, oh, I want to put this paint over on this wall and then have this chair over here, and I'll be like,
no, don't you see? Like, that's a clash. It's going to blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, I can't see that. Like, what are you talking about? So, we all see and learn different ways, and I'm lucky enough that I have this visual thing where I can see things even if they're not there. So it's one of my gifts that I'm lucky enough to have.
Yeah. Cool. And now, you're not the only person that has this gift. If there's a parent out there that has a sense that their kid is thinking in the way that you're thinking, can you suggest any ways that they can encourage and help the kid really make the most of that talent and gift?
Yeah, to get to where I am right now, I was lucky enough to have like 3 really important things. One was I had a passion for something, which was cartooning and writing and drawing pictures. The second was time. I just kept doing it over and over again. And third was supportive and encouraging parents. They totally pushed me to keep working on what I was doing. I always tell the story that I had trouble when I was young. I was very shy and afraid to express myself verbally with people. In kindergarten, I have like my report card that's basically Chris sits apart from everyone else because he just doesn't, is shy and doesn't want to be around people, which is hysterical because now I have a job where I sit at home alone or nowhere near people. But what I would do is if I was having issues, I would work them out visually on a piece of paper. So I would come home after a bad day or something like that, and I would draw out sort of the cartoon of what happened in my day, and then I would fold it up as a paper airplane, and I'd mail it down the steps, and my mother would invariably pick up the piece of paper, and she would read the cartoon to discover what was wrong, how I was feeling, or what went wrong, and she would come up and talk to me, and that was the icebreaker. And I've always said, with kids when I talk to them in schools or parents, if you are having trouble talking about stuff, it's so easy to just do a smiley face or a sad face, and I show them little, the symbol. I mean, every emoji is basically a cartoon, right? So I would say for parents, it's just encourage them to keep drawing every single day. Get them that little notebook, give them a piece of paper and a pen, and give them books and keep them going. I didn't realize I thought differently from other people. I would go into a math class and not understand a thing, and or a science class and not understand a thing, and yet if somebody presented something visually to me, I would get it, and if I work that way, it stuck. So. If kids are learning differently, it's not a bad thing. You just have to sort of work with that and build up. I mean, I learned more out of school than I did in school because I realized I wasn't learning the way that works for me. And luckily enough, these days it seems like schools and other entities are starting to realize that all kids aren't cookie cutter and they learn in different ways, whether it be visually or auditory or on paper or, some, like my one son, when he was having issues in school, he learned that if he just rewrote things down, wrote down notes, he would absorb it and it would get better. So everybody's got a different way of doing things. If your child tends to learn visually and wants to communicate visually, that's, basically it's so simple. It's $5 at Staples. It's a notebook and a pencil. And they'll take off from there.
Yeah. So we had an illustrator on from Italy. She was telling me that her parents encouraged her by allowing her to paint on the wall of her bedroom. That wasn't your experience.
The only time I tried to do something like that, I was really young, and I had gotten when I was really young, my father every Sunday would take us to the local candy store and would say to my sister and I, you could each get one thing. So my sister would always get a candy bar, which would be finished before she was out the door, and I would get a comic book because I figured that I could keep enjoying it, over and over again. And in one of the first comic books I had, there was a coupon or something you could send away for stickers of the the DC superhero. So I got that, put them all up on my walls when they arrived, and my parents lost their mind. So I was never allowed to draw on the walls, but they did encourage me to draw wherever I was. We would go every Friday. We'd go out to dinner to this pizza place, and I always have my sketchbook with me, and I'd sit and draw. And they came to know me as the little artist. And even years later, I had returned after not going to that place since I was a child. They recognized me and said, "You're the guy that draws all the time." I was like, "Wow, that's
cool."
crazy." But so I didn't really get a chance to paint on walls. The only time was when they were like, "Paint your room." We need to, do the right thing. So,
yeah.
That was it.
Hey,
Italy is much more sane than we are.
We were talking before we started recording about being in front of kids and presenting at schools. You've been in front of lots of kids. You've had lots of questions. What's the one question that seems to come up over and over again when you're speaking with kids?
It's funny. It's always like, who's your favorite character, or what book did you like to do the most, or stuff like that. But really, the biggest question is the one that pretty much we've answered today. Was like, how did you become a cartoonist? Like, they always want to know. Like, I think most kids, they're at home and they see mom and dad. Mom, goes off to work, and then dad goes off to his job, and they come home and they have very stable lives, and this job just seems totally out of the realm of possibility for kids at this point, right? Like you can't, you draw pictures and they pay you? Like that doesn't make sense. So how did you do it? And that seems to be the big question. And if you want the answer, I could probably give you I started to give you the answer before, but it started out with, I love it more than anything else. So you have to have that passion for the process. Like, when I was a kid, my favorite thing to do, I'd come home from school, I would grab my sketchbook, I would sit at my desk, and I would draw by myself very contentedly. And now that I'm older, I sit in my room drawing pictures contentedly. So, and there's nothing I'd rather do. Like, if somebody was like, do you want to go to Disney World, or you want to sit and draw pictures? I want to sit and draw pictures. Like, there's nothing I want to do more. So you have to have that passion. The other thing was that I did it, like I said, the passion brought out that I did it every day. And I kept drawing every day, and I would draw different things. I started off tracing. I would trace the Peanuts comic strips. I would imitate other artists. And you build up skills that way. There's muscle memory, and it's just like an athlete building up their skills to get faster, jump higher, whatever it is. You have to start learning at a certain level and then go beyond. So I always say I imitate, and then you start to innovate, and you start to do your own thing, and you sort of take all the different artists that you love and take their styles and mix it up in your own little blender and start doing your own things. But you got to keep doing it every single day, and have a passion for it, and which I did. And it's interesting. There was a period of my career where I lost my way. I got a job right out of college at Marvel Comics, which is like the job, right? If you wanted to get into a fun industry, that's the place. And I started lettering comics. I had gone to school. My degree was in graphic design and advertising because my parents wanted to make sure I had a backup career in case cartooning never worked out. And so they wanted me to letter, and I started lettering at Marvel, and I started chasing the dollar instead of the dream. And I kind of put the cartooning on hold while I just worked day and night lettering books. And I found myself 15 years later going, what am I doing here? Like, why did I do this? Like this is not making me happy. This is not what I wanted to do. I need to reprioritize. So basically that's what I did. I got back on track, and a lot of times the stuff I was doing I wasn't getting paid for. I was doing just cartoon work for the sake of getting better, and I built those muscles back up, and eventually worked myself into the career I wanted initially. But yeah, so that's, basically how you get a career in the arts is just got to have a passion and a lot of patience.
Yes, the patience is a big one. Is a big one, and understanding that it's going to be a roller coaster, and there's going to be ups and downs and valleys.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting too is it's so different. Like when I talk to the little kids, it's always like, how did you become a cartoonist? And then when I talk to like college age kids, I literally have a conversation like, they go, well, how do you get into the business? And I'm like, well, if you're good enough, they can't say no to you, right? If you have worked so hard, they can't say no to you, then you're in. And I say, don't worry about getting an agent. Don't worry about money. If you're doing it to make like a lot of money or to be famous or to do anything like that, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Like, don't worry about any of that stuff. And literally the minute we finish the conversation, I say questions, and then somebody goes, how do you get an agent? And I go, I literally just told you. You will get an agent when you are so talented they can't say no. Okay, next question. Yeah, but is there like a secret handshake to get into a business? And it's like, no. You just have to work and get good at it. So, and that's the thing. People want instant gratification. They want it to be like, hey, I've been at this for 10 minutes. Where's my cookie? I need to be in the business, and it doesn't work that way. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but it's an important one.
It's a real important one, and some people just don't get it. You can say it to them 1,000 times, and they're always just going to go, no, but the secret, the secret doorway. How do I, What's the
which is sad. I mean, because they're not doing it for the right reasons. Like that's the problem. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody. I mean, when I say nobody thought I was going to have a career, much less be successful in cartooning or in publishing, it was people like they were making plans for how they were going to support me. My parents, my sister were all like, "There's no way," but I loved it. I still love it. Like no matter what, and I was more interested in the art than I was about the business, and maybe that's come back to haunt me, because I mean, luckily enough, I have an agent who takes care of me and she looks out for me, but I don't worry myself with all that stuff. It's more about like, when we did our first Ordinary People Change the World book, I was more interested in what other artists thought than how it was received or how much money I made or anything like that. It was more about, can I get better? Like, what did I learn from this and what can I do better next time? So that's the key.
Yeah. Loving what you do, helping our kids understand that if they can, do what they love as a job, they never have to go to work a day in their lives.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, too. I think that's a bit of a lie, too, because it is a job. And there's days, where I might not want to be drawing something or, I might want to just have a break. There's this old saying that inspiration is for amateurs, professionals just get to work. Yeah. And, there are definitely days, like there's certain books or certain pages I don't, I'm like, but you get to it and you try to make it the best it can be. And I make challenges for myself on those pages that I'm not interested in or the days that I don't feel like working. But it is a job. It's not like I'm sitting here going, yay, I have deadlines. Like I've literally, we're now, when we're recording, it is now July, towards the end of July. I've done 5 books since October. I've done 5 books. I literally would pencil, ink, color, and then like on a Friday I would end, and then Monday I would start the next book. And it was like this all the way through. And sometimes you need a break, but it is a job, and people are counting on me, and so I have to make sure that I get it done. So, yes, I love it, and there's nothing I'd rather be doing. But I think with everybody, there's a point where you're just like, I would just like to draw something silly and goofy, but I have to get this work done. So there is a point that I don't want people to think that it's like you just sit and have fun day in and day out. but it still is the best job in the world, so I can't complain.
Yeah. You talked about, the yawns are coming, the giggles are coming. Is there another involuntary bodily function that's going to be coming that you're going to be creating?
I've been thinking about, the hard part with this one, so I've got a number of these I Am books that are coming out. We've got a TV show, which has been soaking up a lot of my time. I have another book that I'm working on in the meantime, but I've been trying to think of a third one. Sort of everything has to come, ever since Star Wars, everything has to come in threes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of the next contagious thing that could be fun. Or, I don't know, sometimes I was thinking, maybe this one could be a sad one, it could be about crying, or it could be the sadness or something like that, just sort of teach a lesson that way. But I tend to lean towards the fun, so maybe I'm going to go something different. Who knows? If it strikes, it strikes. I don't like to push it too much to be I've got to come up with a third. Let's just make it happen, because nothing good comes out of that. It just sort of has to be an idea that pops in. And the giggles just popped into my head. And it was funny because it happened a week before I had a meeting with my publisher, and we went to lunch, and I was just we were talking marketing for the Yawns, and she was just we really hope it's going to do well. I said, I hope it does well because I have a second idea for a book, and it's blah, blah, blah. It's Giggles, and literally that day I had a contract in my email inbox, which is great. But I don't want to just force it so that it's something where it just is not enjoyable. So we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah, great. Well, in the meantime, people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about the Giggles Are Coming and the Yawns Are Coming and all the other great work coming from the mind and the hands of Chris Eliopoulos.
Well, obviously social media tends to be the best places you can find me. On Facebook, it's Chris Eliopoulos. It's on Instagram, it's Chris Eliopoulos. And surprisingly enough, on Twitter, it's Chris Eliopoulos. So, it's just learning how to spell it. But also, if you go to the Penguin Random House site and put in my name, they have listings of my books, and there's all that other. And then there's a whole Marvel side where you can go on the Marvel site and look me up. I'm on there as well, so I'm everywhere.
Awesome.
God help me.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking about The Giggles Are Coming with the author and illustrator Chris Eliopoulos. Hey, Chris, thanks for being back here.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Deborah Mortimer. She'll be here to celebrate Zora and the very big question. Hey, if you haven't done so already, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. Find out what's coming up in the show. Find out what you might have missed. Download all sorts of goodies. And if you're an author, you definitely want to go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the Authors Click Here button. Find out how you might be a guest on the podcast, and also find out about our Certified Great Read program. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. I want to start by thanking our guest, Chris Eliopoulos. Please be sure to check out The Giggles Are Coming. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.